Next question is the one that you were dreading.
No.
So, why, we talked about why you initially started, but what is your why, and what is the reason that you continue to do this, and what your, if we don't have a goal to work towards, and just like you said with the whole fear thing, if we're not scared to do it, then is it big enough? Is it something that you're actually growing and becoming better at? But if we do not have a reason for doing that, then are we really going to try? So that is where this question stems from, is just understanding what it is that motivates you to push and to get your trip to Disneyland or Disney World?
Disney World.
Disney
We're
World.
in Florida.
I want to go to Disney World.
Maybe you'll fit in my suitcase.
Yeah, I think I do. But what is your reason for doing this? What is your why?
You know, when I saw the questions when you sent them over to me, because I was like, can I like get them ahead of time?
Yes.
The why is one of the biggest things that this company talks about.
Okay.
Like, you would not believe it. And I've shared it before in like our group setting, but I've never shared it to
Publicly?
No. Because I feel like it's not my story to tell 1,000%.
Mm-hmm.
But I know I have like spoken to my best friend about all this, and she's like, but it is your story because you lived it, right? Mm-hmm. It's not the same as your daughter's, but it's your story. And it goes back to the confidence and all that stuff. So about, like 2 years ago, I want to say the end of my daughter's 6th grade, beginning to 7th grade. She's in middle school. We really didn't know what was going on. We thought she was being a teenager. Mm-hmm. She was always in her room, really moody, didn't want to talk to us. We were like, teenagers.
Yeah.
We brushed it off. And little did I know that she was actually dealing with a lot herself. The school that she was going to, I know they say no tolerance for bullying, mm-hmm. but she was being bullied at school. And as a mom, I wanted to fix it.
Of course.
So she would come to me, I would go to the school, and it would just make it worse. So at that time, she was in cheer. Her cheer coach loved her, mm-hmm. Loved her. Her name is Samantha, but she called her Sammy. And she messaged me, she's like, I just wanted to reach out to you because a few of Samantha's classmates are concerned about her, and she's been cutting. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, like what do I do? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do? Like, will you talk to her? Do you ask her? So we talked to her, and she's like, I'm just dealing with a lot. I'm getting bullied at school. So I was like, okay. So we thought we had taken care of this. Fast forward, and I still remember this. It was in November. It was a pep rally, and it was a Friday. So they had their pep rally. She cheered. After the pep rally, I took her home, and we thought she was okay. Mm-hmm. We didn't see any signs, any red flags, nothing. I, no kidding you, was pumping water through her system, because I didn't know what it had done. I mm-hmm. didn't know how much, when. I couldn't comprehend it. That next day, which was Saturday, mm-hmm. her cheer coach texted me. Mm-hmm. It's like, I just wanted to check in with you, because if you look at the video of the pep rally, you could tell that Samantha's not happy. Mm-hmm. There's something's going on with her. And at that time, and this is one thing that I've struggled with so much, the shame mm-hmm. of even talking about suicide or mental illness. I was like, I can't tell her that. Mm-hmm. And I said, I reached out, I said, thank you, we'll check in, whatever. Mind you, we were dealing with this.
Yeah.
And for her to check in the day that all this happened, I know her and my daughter have a special bond. And not only that, but she's been there.
Yeah.
Her daughter did the same thing.
Yeah.
So I know she wasn't doing it intentionally, but she's seen the signs.
Yeah.
Because she's been there, and I
And
mean,
sometimes it's easier to see something when you're on the outside and you're not on the inside.
yeah. And I can tell you after that, we didn't let the school know, like my family doesn't know. The only one that knows that happened was my dad. I had to let him know. I still to this day do not want to let my mom know because she does have a heart condition, and I know that she will worry way more than she should or need to for her. I already worry enough for her as it is. Like, I don't need my mom to worry about her too. After all this happened, it was hard for her to go back to school. We would sit in the parking lot for hours for her to like muster the courage to get out of the car. And it started taking a toll on me because not only did I blame myself for what happened, I also blamed myself like that I wasn't a good enough mom to her to have recognized those signs and to have been there for her. So we finally were able to get her into counseling. Like, she saw a psychologist, right, for a few months. And they're like, it's working, but it's not working. Like, she needs to see a psychiatrist. Her chemical imbalance is just so out of whack. She needs medication. It's crazy to me to know that kids that are that young are going through this, and it's not being like spoken about. I was angry. I was like, so, and I didn't know I was angry. I didn't know why, right? So I decided to go to the doctor, and I was like, there's something's going on. Watching my daughter go through it, watching her like go through it, and then trying to cope with it myself, I started going through it.
You took that on, and you didn't even know that you were taking it on.
Yeah. So for a while there, I was on medication, and I was happy, and my daughter would. And she told her dad, she's like, I'm scared of my mom. She's like, I'm scared of my mom because I don't know when she's going to turn into that person again, when she's going to start yelling at us and not be happy again. That hurt because I didn't know I was taking, I didn't know I was doing that. I didn't know I was projecting towards them. So here I am, right, telling everybody, oh, you need to be strong, you need to be positive, you need to do this. Mind you, I was going through it myself and not living or walking or doing any of the things that I was preaching. Yeah. And it was affecting not only me, but my children and my family. I've been going through this for 2 years. Like, she's so thankful she's on medication. She's doing okay, and I hope she stays that way, but I know there's going to be a trigger or something to where she's going to, and I hope not, relapse or be like that. But doing this, and say it's just makeup, but it's helped me realize that we all have flaws and we're not perfect. My story and going through this, I blame myself. I still blame myself. Like, I think in the back of my mind, that's still going to be, you were a bad mom. Why didn't you catch this sooner? And not having someone like my husband, he was there, but he wasn't going through what I was going through. Like, when people say, like, I even mentioned it to him yesterday. I'm like, we're going to talk about my why. And he's like, what does that story have to do with you selling makeup? And I said, it has a lot to do with it because that's who I am. And not only selling makeup, but being around women that have a story, or what people call baggage, right? You share that pain or whatever you want to call it, life lesson, whatever, they're going to relate to you. Especially with mental health, people don't talk about it a lot. Like, I can tell you, coming from a Hispanic family, you don't talk about it. That's one thing you don't talk about. If you're going through something, you're fine. Yeah, you just need to shake it off and you're fine. And it's like, no.
I'm not. Yeah. And having the courage to say that. I think that's the hardest part. And I can't really talk on mom guilt because I'm not a mom, but I know that's something that like Sarah struggles with, even my sister, who her baby's only a year old, that a lot of moms have in common. And I think finding your community with that and being able to I'm sure meet other people that have gone through similar things. But going back to the Hispanic part, yeah, I mean, me and my sister that is in Norway struggled with depression and anxiety when we were in high school and after that. And every talk about it, it's like, no, you're fine. That's all in your head. Even my mom sometimes, she's just like, oh my God, if I was your age, I wouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't be doing this, because they don't, I think it's part of it is they don't understand it. And then the other part is, look, like, we went through things too. Yes, you went through things, but you learned how to shut off your emotions, and that's not healthy because, like you said, the anger comes out in other ways. I know I don't have kids, but I can relate to the anger part. Like, when I am depressed, your emotions, you need to take them back. I'm gonna cry.
Sorry.
But going back to, no, it's fine to have emotions.
I'm not gonna look at you.
But going through depression myself, I know, especially, and it is something that, I don't know if my mom watches my videos, but if you do, Mom, sorry, but I did get this from you. And that's one of the reasons I'm so scared to have kids, because even my dogs, and I know that dogs or pets, it's not the same as kids, I get that, but for me, it is.
That's a lie. That's a lie. Yes, it is. It is the same.
Yes, same type of love, guys, see? From a mom, a real mom. A real mom and a fur mom, too. But, like, when I get frustrated, I am so mean to, like, Paige or Winston. I'm like, get out of the way, or this or that. And I'm just like, and I think about it, and I think about things that I went through with my mom. And it's just like, I'm sure she was going through a very hard time. And it wasn't through until I had, like, years of therapy to understand, like, my mom was going through things. And I think even with you saying that, like, me being a kid that was in a similar situation to your daughter, and that's the thing with me, you saw it. My parents did not see it. And there was days that I did not want to be here. I was on drugs. And I remember my family constantly telling me, you look sick, you look sick. And they had no idea I was on drugs. And I wish that my parents would pay attention the way you have with your daughter. Because in that, I can promise you that as she gets older, she's going to see that. And it's not your fault. I think there's things that kids go through that are going to happen outside of households. And as parents, you can try to protect them as much as you want, but you can't protect them from the experiences that they're going to go through. And we can only pray and give them the tools to be able to get through these things and to be able to say, okay, this, and this happened to me, but how can I change these bad things and see what came out of it? Through depression, I've learned to deal with things in a better, healthier way. I've learned how to meditate. I've learned how to love myself. I've learned how to pour into myself.
What you're saying, like, pouring into yourself, I feel like this, people might just be like, oh, it's a dumb makeup business, but I feel that's filling my cup. So I can be able to then pour into my kids and my husband. When I do my lives, that's like that 1 hour that it's me time. My girls, they'll come in through the videos and then they'll have conversations with me, which is, I love it. Because when I first started this, they're like, oh, you're going live, what are you doing? Or if I were to do a reel night,
Mom.
yes, I actually showed my daughter one of my first reels and she's like, cringe.
You're like, get out of here.
But, like, even just, yes, it's just makeup, but it makes me feel good. And then in turn, I can turn around and be like, you can wear this, you can do this. I want them to see that I'm secure in myself.
Yes.
So then they can be secure with who they are. Because if I'm sitting here being like, I need to lose weight,
Yeah.
I need to do this. And just like bashing myself, they're going to do that to themselves. And even my oldest, she's a 00. She's like, I need to lose weight. I'm like, where? And I know I shouldn't say this, like, it's not a big why. Like, you hear a lot of these other ladies, right, in this industry or whatnot, their why, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, you're going through this. And then I have to, like, sit myself down and be like, that was huge.
Yeah.
Like, that was your daughter. That was her life. Like,
yeah.
How are you, like, minimizing? Yeah. So, like, I sit there and, like, I wouldn't say shame. It's just, again, going back to the Hispanic culture, there's certain things you don't talk about. Mental health is one. You don't talk about sex, and you don't talk about your money. Like, that's, like, 3 things that you don't bring up.
Which is why we have problems with all of these things.
Like, I would love to sit down with my mom and, like, talk to her about, like, what Samantha went through and all this stuff. But, again, I don't want to burden her. And my dad. And he, like, kind of sat me down, and that's when, like, I let him know. And his first response to me was, you need to spend more time with those girls. I'm like, wait.
Yeah.
Coming from a parent that was hardly there.
Yeah.
Because he was working all the time. For him to, like, tell me you need to spend more time with them, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm there. I'm constantly with my girls. We're constantly doing things. Like, I don't understand where you're trying to come from. So, and that's just the old school mentality, right? Like, just spend more time with her. Like, that's gonna cure everything.
Yeah.
It's like, no, sometimes that doesn't cure the problem. They need the medication. They need the therapy. They need to talk to someone, not just, oh, let's go freaking for ice cream.
Yeah, exactly.
That bothers me still.
You also said that earlier, that you were saying all these things to all these people and you weren't doing that. So it's always easier, just that saying, it's always easier said than done. So how you were saying your why and you needed something to pour into yourself. So with that is you teaching your daughters you need to take care of yourself before you can take care of anybody else. And even as a mom, I think that is the hardest thing as women, is that you put yourself, whether you have children or not, and maybe you have a partner. And like, even with everything me and Sarah went through this last year, you're just like, oh, well, I need to put myself on the back burner. No, because when you do that, even if you're taking care of somebody that is terminally sick, whatever it is, when you put yourself on the back burner, you're not showing up the way you need to show up, and you're not being present. So I think that is a very important why, and I think it is good that you, like, even stopped yourself and said, well, I'm comparing it to all these other people. Those are their stories. Those are their experiences. It doesn't make yours any less, because what you went through, what your daughter went through, what you guys are still going to go through as a family, mental illness doesn't go away. You find better ways of dealing with things. You find, hopefully one day she will figure out what her why is. But when you're going through all these things as a kid, you don't always understand, and it's hard. And as parents or older siblings or whatever it is, you want to just, like, shake them and be like, these are the things that help me, but it doesn't work for everybody. And I think that's so important that you're doing it for yourself. It gives you a sense of community. And again, then you get to show up as the best version of yourself, because you are taking that time for yourself outside of all these things. First and foremost, it is loving ourselves and then pouring in. Because if we are pouring from a half full cup, what are you going to get left with? Nothing. I think that's, like, such an amazing why, and I think you're very brave for sharing it. It definitely is your story to tell, because you went through it, and I'm sure you learned a lot about yourself throughout the journey. We really need to stop comparing ourselves. This person went through this person went through that. It doesn't matter. That is your story, and your story is unique to you. And I'm sure there is hundreds of other moms that are either going through it or went through it also, or, you know, went through the worst part and they have lost their child. And
that's one thing I'd never want to think about, right? Like losing my, because what would you do? And then again, I shared my story, and it was very brief. I didn't go in depth like I did right now with you. It was very superficial, but I did touch on the big key points. And somebody else on our team reached out and was like, hey, I don't remember if it was you shared what you went through with your daughter. I'm actually going through it with my older daughter. Can you give me some advice?
Yeah.
And then just having them come to you, it's like, well, this is what worked for me. It might not work for you, but just knowing and having that other person that will experience something similar, but knowing that you're not alone and she's not alone and you guys aren't alone, that there is people out there that have these stories and that you can reach out to them. And even if you don't even come out and be like, hey, I need help, where do I go? What do I do? Just somebody to vent to.
Yes, exactly.
And that's where we hold back a lot, because we're like, I don't want to share that with that person. They're going to judge me. But it's knowing now that I put it out there and they know what I went through. She's like, do you mind, can I talk to you for a second?
Yeah.
That makes me feel good, because I know that I might make a difference in her life or her daughter's life, or who knows, whatever worked for my daughter might work for her daughter. You just never know.
Yeah. And I think even with that, at least in my experience, it also helps you heal, because you're bringing it up. And when you don't talk about something, how are you dealing with it? How are you healing from it when it's so bad you want to keep it locked up? Okay, but you're keeping it locked up, and how is that affecting you? You're holding on to all this sadness, all this anger, all this resentment, all this anxiety, whatever it is that you're holding on to, you're holding it within your body, and that's what ultimately, at least for me, in my opinion, makes you sick. So I think it's good, it's great to tell your story. I appreciate you picking all my little lovies to tell your story to, because it's not an easy thing to talk about. It is a very important thing, but it also shows people that it is okay to talk about these things, and it's important to talk about these things.
I'm still living it. So it doesn't end. It's not like, okay, this is it, we're cured,
Yeah.
It keeps going, and every day is different.
But you learn different coping mechanisms, and you learn what works for you, because just like she said, what works for her family might not work for another family. And as that happens, not only do you learn how to deal with things, but you'll also see the difference, the things that I have learned work for me have not only worked for me, but my little depression spells, or whatever anybody else calls them, they get shorter and shorter. But again, especially if you think about preteens, teenagers, at least when I look back, those were the hardest years of my life. Obviously then you have your adult version of the hardest years of your life, but teens have it rough. And then even now with social media, with all these things and people having access to so many things, I feel like how we had it isn't even compared to how they have it, and what they're looking at, and what they're seeing, and what is going around. So